Hello everyone, my name is RogerDias. I'm an assistant professor of emergency medicine at Harvard Medical School and the director of research and innovation at the Stratus Center for Medical Simulation at the Brigham and Women's Hospital here in Boston. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today participating in this symposium, and my talk is going to be about using extended reality for in-flight medical training during deep space missions. This project is funded by the Translational Research Institute, TRISH, through a NASA cooperative agreement. And this is a 2-year project, and we are now heading to the 2nd year of the project. And we're very grateful for the opportunity to be able to conduct this type of research. So the data I'm going to show here are preliminary data collected through this research. What is the rationale, right? So why we are doing this research and why NASA and TRISH is interested in medical education for astronauts. So here are a few points about the rationale, what are the gaps, and why we are doing this type of research. So first of all, due to the prolonged nature of deep space missions, as you know, it can be like up to 3 years in the travel to Mars, and the inherent risks of the environment, it is anticipated that situations that require medical interventions will arise. Rapid recognition and effective response are absolutely essential to minimize negative consequences of these inevitable clinical scenarios. The distance to Mars or other deep space destinations prohibits real-time or truly synchronous communication with medical experts on Earth. And that's how usually medical care is done in space, is really through a very close communication with flight surgeons on the ground. Therefore, the clinical recognition and response system on board must be based on autonomous capabilities. Another very important point is that deep space crews will be composed of astronauts with varying degrees of clinical knowledge and procedural experience. Maybe some of these missions will have a physician on board, but others will not. To enable autonomous clinical capabilities, the crew must be able to access medical supplies and clinical knowledge and skills to ensure rapid recognition and effective response to these medical scenarios. There is a need for a composite medical education and real-time care delivery guidance system, referred to notionally as Augmented Clinical Tools, ACT, that will provide medical knowledge and guidance during these deep space missions. Now, one thing that it's really important, right, and that's the context for our research, is that in order to be able to have and build autonomous medical capabilities during deep space missions, training is essential. And although astronauts do a lot of training on the ground based on simulations and other methodologies, it's very important for a long duration missions that training also happens in space, right? As we know, for some medical emergencies and basic life support and even advanced life support areas, skills and knowledge decay can be a very relevant problem. And usually after 6 months, and depend on the type of skills, even 3 months, the skills decay, it's tremendous. So doing refresher training and continued training during missions will be essential for any deep space and long duration missions in the future. So what are we doing as part of this project to tackle this problem, right? To tackle the problem of in-flight medical training, and not only training, but also real-time clinical guidance and the development of cognitive aids to help and support astronauts during medical emergencies. So the first thing we did as part of this project was really convene an expert panel. And this expert panel had 48 different subject matter experts from different areas, related areas: XR, extended reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning, space. We had astronauts, flight surgeons, and other space experts in space medicine, telemedicine, and medical education. And the goal for this panel was really to inform our group on the features and functionalities of a extended reality platform to do both medical education and real-time clinical guidance. And the decision to do that was really because we don't want to focus on the technology, right? And just to start developing certain applications using extended reality without really knowing the nature of the problem and the context. And the space context is completely different from the terrestrial settings. So convening this expert panel gave us the information we needed to really design and develop these XR applications. So one of the things we did with this expert panel is really to apply gold standard methodologies using Delphi panel and card sorting to really capture the emerging categories of XR features and functionalities that should be prioritized during design and development of such a system, right? And what we learned from this panel, we're able to categorize all the different functions and functionalities in different categories. Here, for example, adaptive learning, assessment feedback, environment fidelity, training, UX, machine learning, interoperability. So here are some of the categories, the emerging categories that we learned from the expert panel that we should focus on. And for each one of these categories, we were able to establish specific functionalities of the XR system that would be more successful in achieving the goal of providing effective training for astronauts during in-flight long-duration missions, and also providing real-time clinical guidance capabilities. So the expert panel was really crucial for us to inform design and development of this system. Another thing we did as part of this project, we are creating a prototype, right? And the list of potential medical conditions that may happen in space are really huge. We have more than 100. So we also use the panel expertise to help us to think about which medical conditions you have to find to select 2 medical conditions would be a good pilot and prototype for scenarios training, medical scenarios training, and clinical guidance. So we asked them, and here in this heat map you can see like ACT is the augmented clinical tool, the real-time clinical guidance, and MedEd would be medical training. And based on the experts' input, we selected pneumothorax, tension pneumothorax, and smoke inhalation as the 2 scenarios that we would develop for extended reality-based training, and also for our prototype of the clinical guidance, the real-time clinical guidance tool. Now, in order to develop these scenarios, right, we had many possible techniques to create these virtual scenarios. And one of the things we decided to do as part of this project is really, when you think about environment, is instead of creating graphical environments with 3D artists, we decided to actually capture a actual physical simulator. So this is a actual simulator that is here in our sim center at the Brigham, the Stratus Center for Medical Simulation. We built this physical simulator in a previous grant from NASA to do medical simulations in a space simulator. And what we are doing now during this project is really using a technique called photogrammetry to capture the actual environment, the real environment, and transpose this to a virtual environment, right? So the techniques and the pictures I'm going to show here is really the process that we apply to capture the physical world, the physical simulator, and transpose it to a totally virtual 3-dimension environment. So here you see like we work in close collaboration with our partners from industry, Radiant Images, and Panorama experts to conduct and carry out this photogrammetry work. Here is the team working on the simulator and preparing the simulator for the captures. And here a few more photos of the team working on the images. We use like many different cameras and technologies to take more than 1 million photos from this environment and build the 3D model of the simulator. And we also use LiDAR technology to scan the environment and really give us the actual dimensions, a very, very high fidelity replica of our simulator. And here you have the opportunity to see the result. So here's the, not the real one, is the virtual one. So that's the virtualized 3D environment. You can see that's not only a 360 video that you can look around, but it is actually a 3-dimension space that you can walk around. So the user, the learner, when he or she is in this environment, they can actually walk around the space using a VR headset, for example, or the computer or their cell phones. So this was the first step of our project, really to capture physical simulator and transpose it into like a virtual complete environment. So, but here we have the environment, right? Now we need to create the scenarios, the medical scenarios that astronauts will play during medical training. And to do that, we did a few things. So we use a different technique also in extended reality to capture real people, not creating graphical avatars, but capturing real people, professional actors in a video volumetric stage. So this, what you see here, is our director and producer, Rodrigo Cerqueira, really doing some training and testing rehearsal with the actors who are professional actors selected to do these scenarios. I'm gonna show a few more pictures. So here we are like directing the actors in this 3-dimension studio. So here you can see that it's not only filming the actors playing a medical scenario, but actually there are more than 120 cameras capturing these two actors, the two astronauts, from all possible angles, and that way creating a 3-dimension video of the actors acting as astronauts. Here, a few more photos on the stage. Here, production and taking all the takes. And here is an important thing, right? Because the way we created this using really gold standard instructional design methods, it's not to create a movie, not to create a film that the user, the learner, will only passively watch and observe. What we created here is really a experiential learning environment in which the learner can not only observe what's happening in the medical scenario, but the learning can take action. So it's really active learning methodologies, and we use interactive storytelling to create and design a scenario in which the learner, the user, can make a decision, see what happened as a result of that decision, and maybe they are very able to also go back, make a different decision under the same conditions, and see what are the consequences, right? So this is really like the choose your own adventure type of method using branching narrative and interactive storytelling to allow the user to interact and make decisions, take action on the scenario. I'm gonna show here. So this is one of the smoke inhalation scenarios that we use. You can see here closer the different branches, and we had to really align the story design with the filming and production. You can also see here, this is a more complex scenario, the tension pneumothorax scenario, right? And you can see all the ramifications and all the branches through which the learner, the user can go based on their specific decisions from the start until the end of the scenarios. And we use this instruction design and branch narrative technique really to build highly engaging and interactive scenarios using the photogrammetry, the environment that we capture in our simulation center, but also video volumetric to capture real actors. Now here you have the opportunity to see what is the result of the three-dimension volumetric video from these actors, right? And it's interesting because the simulator was captured here in Boston. The actors were captured outside the simulator, of course, using those green screens in Los Angeles, right? And here you can see how it works in terms of like video volumetric.
Hey Brett, I'm gonna hook you up to the heart monitor.
You can see that's a three-dimension video.
Move your finger, I'm gonna check your oxygen saturation. Okay, let me have your arm. I'm gonna check your blood pressure.
Sure.
Right? So you can see that's it's not a 360 video, but it's actually three dimensions. So the user can actually walk around the astronauts, even between the astronauts if they want, because this is a three-dimension asset. Now, as I mentioned, the actors were captured in Los Angeles, the simulator was captured in Boston. And then what we did as development, we put them together, right? And then we put the scenarios, the videos within the simulator, the environment. And that's the next thing I'm going to show you. So here you're going to be able to see, it's a very early version. So it's even like a proof of concept stage that we're still doing a lot of improvements, but I decided to bring this here for you to have a idea of what we are developing and what's the final product is going to look like.
Okay, Parker, I'll hook him up to the oxygen. Okay, Brett, I'm gonna put this oxygen mask on you. This should make you feel better.
Do whatever you have to do to make me feel better.
So in this video, right, you're able to see now what is like the final scenario in which these 3D volumetric videos are now within the 3D environment that we capture. And also you had the opportunity to see how the user will interact with the scenario, the way that the astronaut, the way we design this storyboard, the astronaut asks the user who is in charge as the CMO, the chief the crew medical officer, to make the decisions, right? So the astronaut will ask the user, what do you want to do next, right? What do you want me to do to take care of this sick astronaut? So the decision, most of the places, it's up to the learner, the user, to decide what to do, and whatever they decide, they have options. That's going to happen in the scenario, right? And then they're going to see the consequence. If those were, at the end, we also receive feedback, if those were the right or the wrong decisions to make and why they were the wrong decision. And then they have the opportunity to go back to the scenario and make different decisions and see the consequence, right? So it's a really experiential learning environment in which you are part of the scenario, although you are not there, but with the virtual reality, we're going to deliver these scenarios in 3 different modalities: screen, desktop based, like a computer that you can play, but also fully immersive VR. So if you put a headset, you're actually gonna be inside the simulator with the astronauts, the actors, and you will make the decisions, but also you can go next to the patient, you can go around the spacecraft and really feel immersed with a high sense of presence. So that's what we are designing for these two scenarios for this project. Now, in addition to the medical scenarios, right, this is the training part in which astronauts can do in-flight training, just-in-time training, refresher training over time when they are in these long-duration missions. And the other part of the project that we're developing is really for real-time clinical guidance. So it's not for training, but if you have an emergency, a real emergency, how we can use extended reality to guide you through and to support your decision-making, your clinical decision-making. And this is the part of the prototype that we're still working, but I brought here something we are doing from a similar project in our research lab. And we're going to use a very similar concept to create the real-time clinical guidance for the astronauts. So using the extended reality glasses HoloLens to overlay some important images, text, and information in the way that the system can coach the astronaut through different procedures. So in this case here, we have one of our collaborators who is a emergency medicine physician and the chief of also our ultrasound division, doing a ultrasound guided central line in the mannequin, right? And using the HoloLens glasses. And what we're developing is really like a way to overlay some helpful information that can guide the astronaut, for example, through a procedure, emergency procedure, or through a diagnosis or clinical decision making. And that's the second part of our project that we are developing right now as part of our deliverables to this grant. So with that, I finish here my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention and for the opportunity to share some of the work we are doing here, funded by Trish, by NASA, to advance space health and to incorporate technology to improve medical education and patient safety in space environments. So thank you very much.